Can I add online multiplayer to Regulated City in 3 days? That sounded very possible when I was thinking it. Now that I said it out loud, not so sure. Hey, I'm Pascal from Orangepixel and welcome to another video. For this week I set myself a challenge. Let's add online multiplayer to Regulated City. Again, saying it out loud makes it sound crazy, but it's not. Hear me out. Regulated City is already multiplayer. Right now, if you play it alone, you'll have a AI control character running with you alongside you, but it has multiplayer locally. Split screen. But last Friday I played an online session using Steam's Remote Play Together, which is a bit laggy. I played it with Nathan Haragoshi on the Discord last Friday. As laggy as it was also pretty awesome to do. It was very laggy, of course. I'm up here in my office. There's a Wi-Fi, there's a radio playing on that Wi-Fi. My wife was using the Wi-Fi. Not sure where Nathan was sitting, but if he's also using Wi-Fi. The connection wasn't optimal, but it did make me start to think about doing it differently. I could do this a lot faster. The first thought I had was, what if I copy that screen through the network to the other player? The game screen is just low resolution, so it's like 320 by 240. You don't have to send over 1080p. You can send over 240p, a lot smaller. But if we're sending data anyway, can we not just send the controls that both players are using and then somehow make that work? And that's actually an option. So in the weekend I've been going through this rabbit hole trying to understand how these things could work. There's one method that actually is still used and could work for Regulated City, and that's a deterministic lockstep. But I've been going through the rabbit hole. I learned enough to think I can actually implement this. What it means is a lockstep. Literally it locks every step until we receive the controls from the other player. There are certain ways to buffer that data in case of a very terrible connection. Of course, if the other player has an extremely terrible connection, this will fail. You shouldn't play with people who have a very terrible internet connection. But in simple terms, I have to create an internet controlled gamepad, and all we have to do is send the gamepad controls from one player to the other and vice versa. And then the game loop continues. If we can manage to do this quickly enough with a little buffering here and there, it will add like maybe a couple of milliseconds lag to both player controls. But that's gonna be the challenge for this week. Proof of concept. It's now Monday morning as I'm recording this. This video goes live on Thursday afternoon. That gives me about 3 days to see if I can make this work. Oh boy, I couldn't leave this alone all weekend. I have been thinking about it and I've started a little groundwork already. Your game needs to be deterministic, which pretty much means that even though it's going to be random at places, it should never be random at any place. It should always be based on what happened before. Now luckily the whole universe works like that. Nothing is random. And if you think too much about that fact, you're probably gonna get into the point where you think you don't have free will. But I'm not a real scientist, I'm a game scientist. Let's stick to game stuff. My game has to do everything it does based on the same set of rules, the same set of numbers. If you do the same exact thing twice, it should spawn the same exact results twice. 3 times, 5 times, 10 times, 100 times. It should always be the same. Luckily for me, I already added a lot of code to my game that handles this. All my random numbers are already per entity. So every entity has its own random table. That number is based on the world random table, and that number is based on a seed number. And that's common in many games. You have a seed number that generates a server or a world. Except for this game, everything in that world will always have to have the exact same random numbers. There were a couple of things that weren't, so I added a lot of test code that would just constantly tell me what a certain character entity or a NPC character or a certain weapon or pickup spawn, what kind of number it would have, and then I had to try and play the exact same game, do the exact same thing. If I was killing that guy in the last round, I had to kill him again. If I was leaving that one alone, I had to leave him alone again, because every change I do obviously affects the game world. So I had to do the exact same thing. But I think I'm there. There might still be a few things here and there, but we'll run into those pretty quickly if we actually get multiplayer up and running. because at some point those two players might not see the same thing. And then there is a bug somewhere in the matrix. So it's now Monday. I'm going to work on the next step, which is untie the game controls from the player's entity and make sure they are in a separate object, because that object is what we're going to transmit throughout the network. So if our game can already work with such an object, that makes a lot of sense. Even if we're not going to implement the whole network thing, this will still work. So every control I receive from keyboard or gamepads now have to go into a separate object, and then we'll have the player entity just look at that object instead of actual physical controls. Not a hard task, just needs a lot of digging through code and making it work. That's today's task, and that's how the rest of this video will go. I'll take you through the steps as I do them every day until it's Thursday when this video is now live. So in the end of the video, we'll figure out if I actually manage to get something up and running. And it won't function 100%. I already know a couple of things that will need a little extra work. So at the end of the video, if I can run around a level together with someone from the Discord on the other side of the world or somewhere in Netherlands, whatever, not in this home, and we can move around smoothly without too much lag, or any lag preferably, then I will consider proof of a concept proven, and that it's possible to add online multiplayer to Regulated City. Now you can skip forward to the end of the video and figure out if I managed to do it. I'm going to go through all the steps, starting with untying all that input code and adding it to a special object, entity, class, thing that will actually eventually be transmitted over the internet. Okay, so quick look at the current situation. Every frame we get into this handle input function. Depending on using the keyboard or the gamepad, we go into the right function for that. We look at which keys are pressed, and we pretty much directly give those things to the player entity. So if you press a let's look at the simple ones. Left, if you press the left mouse button, you're going to be shooting, so player gets an action pressed trigger, and that goes for every key you press, left, right, up, down, movement, all those things. And this is what we're gonna untangle from the player object. Now this is the easy part. This is the player controls, but we also have a bunch of interface screens. Those are going to be harder and more difficult because they generally work slightly different. So they now also have to look at this object. That's going to tear up my whole game framework. I'm going to try to find a way to tiptoe around that for now. I just want to see if we can have the player move correctly. So I'll figure out a way to test all that stuff without touching all the interface things. So character select screen, starting screen. We'll have to somehow skip that if we start a multiplayer test, so I can avoid messing up all that code just for this test. Okay, a few hours later, I have a version that now allows you to start a host. I have a version that starts a client, and we got the connection. It's still only Monday. I have a connection working. Let me show you. So the left screen over here is going to be the client. The right screen over here is going to be the host. Let's start the host first. Obviously, that's going to be a lot easier. Host a game. Well, let me lower this on screen and you can actually read it. Host a game, pick a character. And now we're waiting for a player to connect. So let's go over to this screen over here. Connect to a server, pick a character. And we now notice that there's nobody waiting anymore over here. And if I now control the left guy or girl, as you can see, we're now moving. Okay, so there's still a huge amount of things that need to be sorted. Right now it's all running on one computer. Gonna try it on 2 computers. Then I'm gonna try and see if somebody can help me test it on the internet. So someone somewhere else in the Netherlands or somewhere, I'm just gonna poke someone on the Discord for this. But it's also at the end of Monday, so we're gonna do most of that, I think, on a Tuesday. So it's now Tuesday morning. And it's actually the end of the morning. I've been digging through code so much, time got away from me. I'm slightly worried that I'm now way in over my head on all of this, but it's a challenge. I still have 1.5 days left or a little bit more. So I have been building a little hub area for these players. So when you join a server, the first place you're gonna be entering is this hub. Players can wait for each other there before they start the game. This is gonna be the area where we're gonna synchronize the players. They need to sync up with controls and frames and ticks and world updates and all that. And this is where it has to happen. And that's what I've been trying to figure out, how to do all that, because that's actually a very difficult part of it, but it's also the most important part. If they don't sync up, this whole method of multiplayer is not gonna work, so they have to sync up. Good news, before I quit yesterday, I actually had a little play session with Serious Lion. That's on the internet. I'm in Netherlands, he's in Belgium. It's not a long distance and we have very good connections, but I'm on the Wi-Fi in the office at upstairs. He was on his Wi-Fi as well, and we had very smooth controls. So he was moving around on my screen, I was moving around on his. It wasn't synced up, so whatever I smashed he wouldn't see actually, unless it was perfectly, but even just a single frame drop or a single problem in the connection, we wouldn't notice and we would run out of sync. But the fact that it actually moves very smoothly, that's a good sign. So I decided to continue. I now just have to create that synchronizing and make sure that both copies of the game stay in sync. And I'm not really sure yet how to do that. I mean, in theory, it's just check if all the controls and inputs is coming in. If not, we wait. I'm not sure yet if this is the way to go, but I'm just gonna try it and we'll see where we are in a few hours. Almost 4 p.m. The day is getting away from me. I've been digging and diving into this just full concentration mode. I did a test with Graham from the Discord. He lives in South Africa, so the connection between the Netherlands and South Africa is a lot different than between me and Serious Lion in Belgium. And it was very noticeable, very different. There was a huge amount of lag. And then I implemented the lockstep at that point. So it pretty much meant that my screen was not updating until I received his new input status, and vice versa. And that just wasn't usable at all. So after that I implemented buffering, making sure that we have a little buffer of input data coming in, and that does add some sluggishness to all players. It's a very split second, but it's very noticeable. As you can see in the video, this was a test with Serious Lion, so that's Belgium again. I'll try this with Graham, see how that moves now. I could live with this sluggishness. The rest is pretty smooth, and there are still things I could add to this to improve it all. Now I still have some time to work on this, but my gut feeling is that I'm not gonna get it up and running to the level that I want. Even though this is now working and sluggish, I still have to figure out how to keep these games in sync completely. Like every creature, enemy, monster, every crate being smashed, every door opening, every button being pressed. If I do it on my end in the Netherlands, Graham has to also know that it's happening on his end, because his computer is gonna simulate the same thing as my computer is. And if that's just a tiny frame out of sync, it will be a butterfly effect. After a couple of minutes of playtime, we'll be looking at a completely different game world. I'm still gonna push on with this for the rest of the afternoon. I have like 1 or 2 hours left that I'm gonna figure out my options so that I can maybe use my Wednesday to work on options that improve the sluggishness and the synchronization and all that. It's Wednesday, end of the morning. I've spent this morning creating a synchronization phase. So when you join the game, you join the hub world, and from there on you start a game, and then both players will be able to pick their gear. So flash grenades, body armor, whatever is offered. Both players get offered the same thing if everything works correctly. And then when you continue, you'll have to wait for the other player. So that phase is now a little synchronization. From there, we have to start the exact same frame. At the end of yesterday, I actually did a couple more tests with Serious Lion. We now have a flexible buffer going, so that if you have a bad connection, the game will slightly change the buffer, the amount of input it needs before it continues, so that it hopefully battles the lag that happens between two connections. Now also had this weird brain fart that I was testing with Graham in South Africa. I've never been able to play online multiplayer games with people from South Africa. I should test in Europe, Western Europe. I should have a fairly decent connection to those countries. So if I can test with some of those people and it holds up, we're good to go. But now we have to make sure that both games are in sync at all times, and they are not. I already have situations where I'm picking up something on the client and the host doesn't notice it happening, and vice versa. Some of the characters, the enemies, are in different spots. It's just minor little differences, but they should not happen at all, because as explained, minor differences over a long amount of time turn into chaos, like completely different game worlds. So everything has to be exactly the same. Now I have to figure out why that's happening. I'm now heavily debugging the whole game engine, added a lot of debug stuff. Right now we see this little ooze worm thingy with a number on it. That number is his random number, and it should be the same at all times with, this is the one screen, and then over here we have the other screen. This is the host and this is the client version. And I'm just debugging all of the numbers and all of the things. But so far it's every time I kill something. So let's bring both players over here. So I kill it on this one, and now there's a worm on this screen moving around, but it's not on that screen, not at the same spot. And these issues is what I'm dealing with. So most of the afternoon I've been spending writing a lot of debug code. So everything now has numbers. I needed to make sure that both games have the same world random number, and it was increasing on one extremely fast while it wasn't increasing on the other one. This is gonna be a lot of work. Honestly, not sure if I'll make this all work in Regulated City. Regulated City just has so many things going on. I'm not sure if it's gonna be doable. But I also know that all the code I just wrote in the last couple of days is gonna be very useful for a couple of other games. This is all easy to implement into Space Grunts 3, the other game I was working on and will be the next project, maybe, possibly. It's a turn-based game and it doesn't need all these things happening, so it's much easier to control movement. And it could be kind of cool walking through a space station with 2, 3, 4 players. The only downside is that, of course, you have to wait for each other's turn. I think I can make it work, and I already came up with ideas that I could actually do with this multiplayer code as well. So even though if it doesn't make it into Regulated City, this week was not a waste, because all this code is going to be copy and pasted into other projects. Still got an hour or so to work on this right now, and a few hours tomorrow morning. So I'm gonna dive back in and fix a few things that I know are going wrong now. I'm just gonna find why they are going wrong, and possibly I can then fix a lot of it at once, because a lot of these entities and objects share the same code. So if one goes wrong and is fixed, hopefully the rest is also fixed. Thursday morning, it's still early, but this video needs to be live in 6 hours from now, and I came up with an idea for the game, the netcode. I think I'm not properly handling the lock step. I'm pretty sure not the whole game is currently being locked at the right time, and that will obviously cause a lot of difference between two connected players. So I think I know a quick way to try this. I don't want to mess up the whole game logic, so I'm trying to build it outside the game logic while still using that game logic. It's difficult to explain, but this is my final attempt for this video at least. I will probably continue trying, tinkering with it tomorrow and the coming weeks. But this is the last thing I'm gonna try for this video. I changed my code. We now have a buffering, and somehow I was messing up the buffering because it caused extra lag instead of fixing any input lag we might experience. So we now have a buffer. It means that we are receiving 8 inputs before we actually process them. That brings us 8 frames later than we are actually pressing the button. But that's okay, and for most computers we can lower this buffer to like 2 or 3 for most connections. Now I'm testing this using a little tool called Clumsy, which is this one, and it can change the speed on my network. So right now we have nothing on and I can move smoothly, very smoothly around everywhere. Of course, I'm still doing this on a local host, so the server is on the screen to the left and the client is here. But if we now turn on fake dropping of packets, we can actually experience how it would play if we have some random lag. This would be pretty bad lag, but I think it's still playable. But this way I can at least test out if there is a lot of lag. Of course, I just did another test with Sirius Lion, and that was such a smooth experience. If you have a good connection, there's not a lot of data being pushed between the two computers. So if you have a good connection, a decent connection to your friends or family, and of course on a local area network, this is going to be extremely smooth, and that's all working now. The problem is that it's still not completely synced up. Let me lower this one. There are still things going wrong. If I create chaos over here, I have creatures running around, but the server, as you can see on the server, that creature is not... I'm getting hit there, but you don't see the enemy. And those little weird things need to be fixed. Okay, so I decided to end the video here with a failed attempt adding multiplayer to Regulated City. But I've learned so many things that I don't think it was a waste of my week. A lot of this code is functional, as I said earlier this week. I think it was a few minutes for you, but it's been a long week. A lot of this will trickle down to future projects, but I'm also not giving up yet on the Regulated City version, especially on a local area network. This could work very well. I just have to figure out why it's not getting synced up between two computers or two machines. I still have a couple of ideas. I'm gonna try those things in between their real work on Regulated City, because the game, my deadline is November still, so there's still a huge amount of things that I need to do. All these tiny little things, level design. There's more important stuff than the multiplayer, but I'm not giving up just yet. I'm just ending the video here because I need to edit this video, render it, upload it to YouTube, and come up with a thumbnail for it, and then edit that one, and only have a few hours to do all that. So I want to thank you for watching the video. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment below, all those things, and I will see you next week, but not on a challenge. This was a weird, crazy week, long hours, crazy short nights with my head just exploding with information and new things that I had to learn. It's been a crazy week, so next week we'll try something easier. See you there.